So today, my goal is to share with you some tips and techniques that you can use to help you be more comfortable and confident when you're speaking. In other words, to be able to think fast and talk smart. To do this, we're going to look at 4 different steps. First, we're going to talk about the approach we take. Then we'll speak about the audience we talk to, the context in which we find ourselves, and finally, the structures we use to help our messages get across. Most of us, when we are in situations where we need to communicate, we see them as threatening. We see them as opportunities for failure. And I'd like to suggest that we need to change that. We need to approach communication in an open way. See it as an opportunity to share our ideas, our beliefs, our innovations. And when we take a perspective of openness, all of a sudden something that we dread becomes something that we embrace. So the first step to effective communication is to approach it in an open way. But that's not enough. We need to think about the audience that we're speaking to. And to me, the way to approach it is the opposite the way most people do. Most of us think about, here's what I want to say, or here's what I need to say. I would suggest that's exactly wrong. You need to think about, what does my audience need to hear? And it sounds just like verbal jujitsu, where I'm moving words around, but in fact, it's a fundamental difference. If I ask myself, what does my audience need? It puts me in service of my audience. It's about their needs. And in order to understand those needs, I have to do some reconnaissance. I have to ask myself who they are. The 3 things I think we need to ask about our audience are, what is their knowledge? What is it that they know? And if they don't know enough, what can we do to scaffold that information so that they have the tools they need? In addition to knowledge, we need to be thinking about their expectations. And by expectations, I mean, what is it that they expect of me? Most audiences have heard the types of presentations you're giving. Maybe it's a pitch, maybe it's some kind of advertisement or marketing. Your audience has heard those kind of presentations before. So what do they expect of you? And then you can choose to conform to those expectations or not. You know, I have 2 young kids, and I learned that sometimes violating their expectations actually is the most effective thing I can do for the communication we need. My boys sometimes make me upset. And when they make me upset, I used to raise my voice to no avail. Nothing happened. I was ignored. And that's tough for a communication guy. So what I started to do when I'm really upset with my boys, I lower my voice. And they stop dead in their tracks. Violating expectations sometimes can actually help you as a communicator. The final thing we need to think about are, what are their attitudes? The way you approach your communication is influenced by what your audience thinks about what you're talking on. Are they in favor of it? Are they against it? Are they hesitant, agnostic? Those are the things you need to be asking yourself when you communicate. So we need to appreciate our audience. So knowing your audience really matters. But beyond knowing your audience, you have to appreciate the context in which you speak. Whenever you speak, you are in a particular context. And to me, context comes in a bunch of different varieties. The first thing about context we need to think about is the time. What time of day are you communicating? If you're talking early in the morning, you might have to have a little more energy to keep people moving. Same thing after lunch when people are having that food coma experience. Context also involves emotion. Most of us, when we communicate, we think about information. What's in my head, in my heart, I need to communicate to you. But we also communicate a feeling. Maybe we're trying to get people excited and motivate them. Maybe we're trying to scare them, create that burning platform that motivates them to change. Sometimes we're just trying to instill confidence. You should believe in what I'm saying. But we need to think about the emotion as well as the information. The final bit of context has to do with where you're physically speaking. Location matters. Think about the way the room is set up. Think about the environment. Is it live? Is it virtual? Those change the way that you communicate. We need to think about location. So our approach is important. Our audience is important. The context in which we find ourselves is important. And so too is the way we structure our messages. It is much easier for humans to understand information when it is structured. In fact, we remember information up to 40% better when it's structured. What do I mean by this? Some of you listening are too young to remember, but those of us of my age, when we wanted to call somebody on the phone, we actually had to remember a phone number. My kids today, they look at a picture, push a button, and the other person starts talking on the phone. We had it much harder. We had to remember 10 digits. 10 digits are hard to remember. So what did we do? We put them in a structure. 3, 3, and 4. That's how we remembered. That's what I mean by a structure. The information is put in a way that it makes it easy, not only for you as a speaker, but also for the audience to remember. A chronological structure can really help you navigate your audience from one place to the next. Quite frankly, structure sets expectations. You can't be lost if you have a map. Your structure provides a map, and the chronological structure is incredibly helpful for that. The next structure happens to be the problem solution benefit structure. This is one of the most persuasive structures out there. You start by explaining what the issue is, you talk about how to solve it, and then the benefits to the people. Finally, my favorite structure, the one that I use the most, I call this the MacGyver of all structures. This can get you through any situation. Is the what, so what, now what structure. You start by telling people what the issue is, you tell them why it's important in that so what step, and then you tell them what's next, what's coming. It's like a Swiss Army knife. You can use it in situations if you're teaching, you can use it if you are trying to motivate people, and you can use it even if you're introducing somebody. Change the what to a who, and you've got your introduction. Structure helps keep your audience together and in line. When I was an undergraduate, I was a tour guide. It was the highest paying job on campus, and boy, did I need money. I trained for 12 weeks to be a tour guide. I learned lots of interesting, some would say useless facts about my university. Thing they drilled into our heads besides how to walk backwards, which to this day I still can do in a straight line. The most important thing they taught us, they said, above all else, to be a great tour guide at this institution is to never lose your audience. You are a bad tour guide if your tour group gets lost. The same is true when you're speaking. Structure keeps people together. We need structure. So we see here that these tools, the tools that help us get our audience engaged and involved and help us convey our message, are the same tools that help my students learn to love speaking and learn to do it well. So if you get the message right and you communicate it effectively, you can make a big difference. And these are skills that are at your disposal. It just takes practice and a little bit of a positive approach.